Alright, welcome back, Multi-Man Publishing Standard Combat Series North Africa, and we are continuing to play the Crusader scenario, and we are still on the first turn, although both sides have to start thinking about the end of the turn because they're running low on supply. And we do see the last activation. The Brits took a shot at getting the German supply unit in revenge for the 4 supply units the Germans took, which I think is going to be the pivotal moment of the game. But they also secured and entrenched around Bardia and secured their supply while taking a chance here and throwing some armored cars up here to disrupt the German supply lines along the primary road. Luckily for the Germans, they do have units here that can respond to that. But the question is now, Germans have to decide what kind of activation they're going to do now. And in theory, they can get, conceivably with the 2 supply units they have, they could get a full activation, 2 airstrikes, 3 artillery, and they could take a shot at things here. But looking at this, though, they're going to make a different play. Since the British did a full activation, the Germans are allowed to do a reaction activation only if the preceding enemy was full or limited. And if the Germans do a reaction activation, then they're allowed to move their units within a 10 hex range. Actually, Rommel is allowed to overrun, but he's starting here, and you can't move Rommel at the beginning of the turn. You can't move a leader at the beginning of the turn unless it's a full or limited activation. You see that here, so it doesn't say anything about moving leaders here. So Rommel is stuck here, and they're in a zone of control, so they can't overrun. So Rommel's not going to be taking advantage of that, but they pick a center point, and then they're within 10 hexes. Now, by doing that, the British are stuck. They either have to pass or do a limited or even a full activation, but it will be using units, supply units here in Tobruk, which means only Tobruk units could move, and maybe these units. But all the rest of their units are out of the 10 hex range. So I think what the Germans are going to do is do a reaction move and force the Brits. They can actually leverage that reaction move to set up for an attack, and they were eyeing doing the same thing actually. It looks like they can blow through what they can basically do is a reaction. Then the Brits can do a limited, but it would only be these units, and then the Germans can burn both supplies, get a full activation, try and deal with the units on the road way back there, and by the same token, with a reaction, and then a full activation, and then an exploitation on top of that, they could really block this road and turn the tables. So I don't know how gamey that is, or maybe it didn't properly protect supply lines. And that's what this game is teaching me here, because it's so fluid. You have to screen your supply lines, especially as you get to the end of the turn. And ironically, historically, during the Battle of Crusader, I think it was Rommel, actually, they said, I don't know what they called it, run to the wire or whatever, 2 times during the battle. He threatened going this way and trying to, help the British lose their nerve and run back. Luckily, Auchinleck showed up in headquarters and prevented that. But it looks like that's the strategy here, is going to be threaten the lines back here. So that's the plan. They're going to do a reaction movement, and it's got to be a 10 hex radius. So from any unit, and their furthest unit is 10. So in theory, they could pick this guy maybe. And then anything within 10 can move. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So they can get all the way to here. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And the entire there, and let's see if I pick that guy. Yeah, the furthest unit is there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So they could even shift 2 to here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's the better unit there. And that pretty much allows 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that will be the center point, and that pretty much covers the entire front. So that's going to be the 10 hex radius. Obviously, it doesn't include the units way up here. We're going to have to wait until an actual activation to get these guys. And this could get dicey because these are armored cars and I'm playing the optional retreat before. So they may have to think about maybe if they can get somebody back here to block their retreat route before they move adjacent. But that's for another turn. So pretty much reaction move. Everybody can move, and that's about it. So let's go ahead and take a look at what I'm going to do. All right, I think I'm done. I'm not sure if this is best. We can start over here. I did I moved this guy here, reimbursed the line, left these units in place just in case, but then over here, recognize that a supply unit here could activate these guys. So the British do have that option. They can pass or burn a supply and activate these guys. And so what I did was basically pin them down. They're not going anywhere. They get attacked this way, but they won't get very far. This guy could get one attack out, but won't go very far. So hopefully these guys are trapped. These guys are not going to be able to move at all. They're more than 10 hexes away from the supply unit in Tobruk, so they are frozen in place. So instead my goal was to do two things. I've built up some overrun stacks. Here's one. Here's another. Here's another. And here's another, potentially. And they're not in zone of control. So if the Germans decide to do a full activation, they'll be able to overrun if it makes sense. But the real danger, these guys are going to try and close the Halfaya Pass. And that'll cut the supply there and potentially prevent the Brits from going this way. And these guys, it's just at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10. These guys are going to be able to go next turn. And if it's a full activation, I hope the other guy isn't. Oh, I made a mistake here. That guy, well, that's fine. He can go 14. He'd just not exploit. These units can fly like the wind. One of the units, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That could be this guy parked in Bardia, parked in Sidbarani, and he's doubled. Then the other guy can just go to the races anywhere along here to block their supply also. So this is a case where going to the wire, well, we'll see how next turn plays out. The only choice the British have right now is they're going to either pass or burn a supply unit here and maybe attack with these guys, but they're not going to go anywhere because this is non-exploit capable. They can only advance one after combat no matter what the result. And this guy could, but I don't think he can advance enough to, well, maybe pin one of these guys. Or the Brits could just put the pedal to the metal, do a full activation. They get 3 artillery units. That's it. They've already burned their air support, and they could use it to try and bombard these guys. And that would take take the teeth off the attack there. I think it still has to be within 10. 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'll have to read the rules. I don't know if artillery can be more than 10 away from the supply unit. So, a lot to think about, and of course for the Germans, they still have to figure out if they do a full, well, they're going to have to do a full activation. And these guys are going to have to figure out how to deal with these units, and at this point I don't know if they can because of retreat. Unless I send somebody on a real wide hook and get behind them. And it prevents them from retreating back onto the road. Well, there's a lot to work out here too. So, I think I'm going to be doing a lot of surrender rolls during the interphase. So anyhow, there we go. Rommel is setting up for another counterattack. Nobody's truly on the defensive in this game. It's just reacting until you run out of supplies. And of course, the turning point for this scenario was the Germans successfully destroying 4 British supplies. If they hadn't done that, I don't think it would have been good for the Germans. And the other lesson is you need to screen your supply lines with units with these kind of speeds. Same for the Germans too. So a lot going on. Anyway, I'll end it right here. Thanks for listening. If you like, click like, comments if I messed up any rules. And of course, as always, subscribe if you haven't already. And we'll see you back here for what are the British going to do. So see you next time.